All right, and welcome, my friends, to the next episode of the Red Delta Project podcast and live feed Q&A. We're simplifying this whole diet and exercise fitness thing, giving you more power, control, and freedom over a healthy lifestyle. Of course, as always, I'm Matt Schifferle from the Red Delta Project. This week's episode is sponsored by the continuational growth of the RDP library. I've just posted 3 new, what I'm starting to call quick reads, over on the RDP library over on Amazon.com. PDFs will also be available very shortly in the RDP merch store, where you can get t-shirts like this, of course, where these are very quick pieces of not so much books, they're sort of like ebooks, but they're more of just a simple, hard-hitting idea that I've been using for many years, things like my scoreboard progression log, calorie hacking, and of course, there's the new supplement to the Grind Style Calisthenics workout program, which is the entire year's worth of programming for use with the Grind Style Calisthenics, the shortest, most direct way to build muscle and strength with body weight training. And links to those are all in the description as well. So today's episode, this week's episode rather, is all about pain. Why? Because pain is quite simply, my friends, kryptonite for your health and fitness, regardless of what your goals are, whether you want to lose weight, build muscle, improve your physique, improve your performance, just have a healthier lifestyle, whatever you're looking to do, pain is going to hold you back. And over 20 years of being a personal trainer and working with people on their health and fitness, I've recognized that a lot of us have very backwards and dysfunctional ways of dealing with pain. And not only does this lead to a lot more chronic discomfort from the pain, but it's also these things that just don't help you out and are very detrimental to helping you achieve your goals. So the first thing to recognize about pain is that it is bad. It is straight up, flat out, no bones about it, a bad thing. Now, I know that may seem obvious to a lot of you out there, like, yeah, no duh, Matt. That's why it feels bad, and we go to the doctor and we want to get things really to be in better shape. But sometimes, especially egotistical guys like me, when I was younger, pain was actually almost something I embraced, something that I didn't always see as a bad thing. And this kind of comes from the no pain, no gain type of attitude in our fitness culture. And sure, that may relate to a little bit of exercise when you're getting uncomfortable, you get the burn in the muscles, you're pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. Absolutely. But I took it to the point where I purposely exhibited levels of pain upon myself, where I would do things in such a way that I made sure I was physically damaging my body in some way, shape, or form, because I thought that the more discomfort I was under, the more pain I exhibited to myself, the more I was telling my body it had to overcome that and become stronger. It's the old adage that pain is weakness leaving the body. But the reality is very different. Pain is not weakness leaving the body. It is weakness, period, flat out. I don't care what you're trying to do. I don't care what your objectives are. You're worse off if your body is in pain. It's always going to make you slower. It's going to make you weaker. It's going to make you fatter. It's going to make you lose technique, performance, and proficiency across the board. There is nothing you possibly gain from being in pain. It doesn't make you tougher. It doesn't make you stronger. It doesn't make you more macho, as I used to think it was. It is always a sign from Mother Nature that you're doing something wrong, that you're screwing something up. Now, of course, let's get to some of the other issues of, well, you can't entirely avoid pain throughout your life, especially physical pain and fitness. And that's, of course, true. As a mountain biker, you're going to crash, as I've learned many times over. As a martial artist, you're going to get kicked. You're going to get your shins beat around. You're going to have those mishaps that happen. And it's going to happen. Absolutely. So I'm not saying that you have to completely avoid pain as if it was possible in order to have a good chance of being able to achieve your goals. But the point I'm trying to make with this little story of mine is the fact that it's not something to embrace. It's not something to take as a badge of honor like I used to, where I think, okay, I've got to be able to endure pain in order to be in shape, because I literally would force myself to endure things on an uncomfortable level that were completely unnecessary. Like with mountain biking, when I got into it, And I started taking it a little more seriously, start getting the gear, you're no longer riding in basketball shorts and t-shirts. You get the padded shorts and the jerseys and everything. But I always refused to wear gloves. I never wore gloves, even though all my friends are like, you got to wear gloves, dude, especially on those long rides. Those handles are bouncing around and creating little friction in your hands. You're just going to beat up your hands. And if you crash, you're going to have more risk of injuring their hands if you fall on pavement and stuff. It's like, no way, man, I don't need those sissy gloves. That's not for me kind of thing. And I would literally be on mountain bike rides where I would have blisters on my hands from holding on and climbing up hills for long periods of time. And the blisters would pop, and then I would still keep riding. And I took it again as a badge of honor, like, this is making me tougher. No, it's making me stupid, because there's no way I could ride a mountain bike as well with blistered hands as I would if I had more comfortable hands, because every ounce of pain is distracting your attention and your energy to dealing with the pain instead of doing the actual thing you're supposed to be doing, which in that case was riding a mountain bike faster. Nobody is ever stronger when they're in pain. If you can eliminate the pain, you will be stronger, you will be faster, you will have a better quality of life, and you will have a much easier time losing weight and keeping the weight off. So that's the first thing to understand, is pain is a bad thing. It's not something to embrace. It's not something to endure. It is something that we want to overcome. And I'll be discussing a lot more in detail some of the best ways to do that. But let's talk to some of the folks coming on in. Sniffrad is here. Michael from Drop Weight Daddy, thank you very, very much. And good, and glad to hear, Michael, your books are going to be on Amazon soon. We've been talking quite a bit that some of his books were not on Amazon. I'm like, dude, you've got to be able to get your books on Amazon. You're losing out. You're not helping as many people as possible. Dan is coming on saying, I really struggle with consistency getting older. I work out upper 3 times a week for about an hour, but always seems to get injured. Am I doing too much? That may be the case. So as I said earlier, pain is Mother Nature's way of telling you you're screwing something up. You're doing something wrong. And not only is this thing doing wrong causing pain, it is actually detracting from the very things you're trying to create in your workouts. Now, I've got a number of clients right now that I have who have hired me specifically to help them avoid pain in their training. This happens, especially in the bodyweight world, quite a bit, where people will say, I've been trying to work out on my own for many years, and I always make some progress, but then I get hurt and injured. And of course, when you're hurt and injured, you got to scale back a little bit, or you end up quitting, or you got to work around the injury, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. But nevertheless, it's a setback. Every time you're injured and have pain, it will be a setback. There's no acceptable way to work around it. I get questions from people saying, okay, I've got a busted shoulder, my knees, my ankles, my back, whatever. What can I still do? Well, there's always things that we can potentially still do. However, know that there is nothing that's going to be a suitable workaround. Whatever you're doing to try to keep your legs strong, despite having a knee pain or whatever, it's always going to be a compromised approach. It's not going to be as strong. It's not going to build as much muscle. It's not going to improve your performance as much. There's just no suitable workaround. I'm all for working around it to get whatever you can out of it. Absolutely. Don't give up and just sit back on a recliner and say, oh, I've got a hangnail, I can't work out. But you definitely want to get rid of the pain to begin with. But I'm getting ahead of myself because we want to avoid it in the first place. So there's a number of sources for pain, of course. As Dan was alluding to, maybe I'm doing too much. Yeah, maybe you are there, Dan. Because when we are exercising in any way, shape, or form, we, of course, are putting stress through our body. And let it be known that the human body in healthy condition can endure an unbelievable amount of stress in many different ways, in ways that we often think are detrimental. Like a lot of times, with deep lunges and squats and stuff, there's still that old idea of, oh, you shouldn't squat below parallel or knees over toes and everything like that. And it's like, that's a complete myth. Your body can handle that stuff flawlessly. I get more knee stress walking up a flight of stairs now than I do from heavy weighted sissy squats, even though people are like, sissy squats will ruin your knees. No, that's how I healed my knees. But it's how we approach these sorts of things, because stress goes through the body inevitably because we're being pulled down by Earth's gravity, but it's how we handle that stress that is the key. So in your case, Dan, for one thing, am I working out too much? Possibly. However, I would guess that what you're doing is causing excessive amounts of stress on the body. Now, this goes along with what I was saying earlier about how sometimes there's this attitude where we embrace pain and we seek it out because of this old idea that stress is the thing that makes us stronger. And therefore, we have pain, we have more stress creates a stronger stimulus. It's not at all true. Your body does not change because of stress. I'm just going to say that again. Your body does not change because of stress. Because in the exercise science world, every time they take that type of stress, like breaking down muscle, for example, they're like, is that what's really causing our body to adapt? They'll put subjects through experiments where they're like, okay, we're just going to create this stress in an isolated way and see if that creates the adaptation we're looking for. And almost inevitably, it doesn't create it. There are tons of examples where people would destroy and thrash and bash and really break down their muscles with no muscle growth at all resulting from it. There's times when people will drive themselves into the ground with exhaustion and bringing themselves to the point where they can barely keep doing the exercise and have almost no improvement in endurance. Or people who even in stretching will stretch to the point where it feels like their muscles are going to tear in half with no benefit at all in mobility. I've been on both of those ends of the spectrum. Stress is not the thing that tells our body it needs to adapt. It just simply means get the hell out of there. When we are training, we do experience some degree of stress, absolutely, and some degree of discomfort. Sure, it's part of it, but that's not why your body changes. Your body is changing because you create a stimulus telling your body it needs to perform at a higher level. Now, you could do that with a ton of stress. You could also do that with relatively little stress. It doesn't matter. Imagine if you were driving a car and you were just grinding the gears in the transmission and smoking the tires like crazy and rubbing the edges of the side of your car against guardrails as you go around. You're stressing the hell out of your car. Does that improve your ability to actually get to work on time? No, it just beats up your car. So when it comes to the idea of, am I working out too much? You may be working out fine as far as how much you're doing, but you may be eliciting too much stress on your body. And yes, the amount of volume that you impart upon your body may be creating that. So it's pretty easy to figure out if maybe decrease a little bit. But what I would do is, again, have an objective-based approach to your training and exercise. I never tell someone how much they should work out. Never. I gave that whole thing up years ago. You can work out once a week or 7 times a week. I don't care. I don't think it's that important. You could work out 1 set or 50 sets. Again, I don't think it really matters. What you get out of your training does not depend on how much work you do, because how much work you do is closely related to your stress. You don't get your results from how much you stress your body. You get results by achieving your fundamental objective of your training. And from there, you do whatever amount of work you can or is necessary to accomplish that objective. When you have an objective-based approach, you're no longer seeking pain. You're no longer seeking stress. You're seeking the actual thing that's responsible for an effective workout. And I go through this in much more detail in my book on micro workouts. But the point is, it's either you're trying to burn calories, in which case the more you do, the more you burn. You're trying to create a stimulus for hypertrophy, in which case just burn out the muscle. Or you're trying to improve performance in some way. Like, I'm trying to get stronger, I'm trying to get faster, I'm trying to be a better golf swing, whatever. In which case I say practice that as well as you can, but stop practicing once your performance starts going downhill. That's the way it works. So I never tell anybody this is how much work you should do, because no matter what answer I give them, it's probably going to be wrong most of the time. Instead, do whatever you need to in order to burn some more calories, in which case anything you do works. Burn out the muscle. And once you feel like it's getting pretty kind of burned out and tired, You're done. Don't do more sets. You can always do more work, but that's not the objective. And improve your proficiency. Now, for you specifically, Dan, what I would look for is each of your workouts, are they improving in your performance? That's the big one. I used to work a muscle 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, full body generally. Monday was good. Wednesday was yeah. And then Friday, it was just getting through it. There's no point in doing a workout if you're trying to improve your proficiency and your ability to use your body if your ability to do the exercise is compromised. Sometimes I'll jump on that pull-up bar back there and I'll be like, okay, pull-ups, here we go. And after about 5 reps, I'm like, man, I do not have it today. Oh, everything's tight and stiff and creaky and achy. And yeah, screw this. I'm not doing this. Because if I can't do well in pull-ups, what's the point? Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's stressful. Yes, it's burning muscle. Yes. So what though? I train for the sake of improving what my body can do. And if I'm not going to improve what my body can do, I wouldn't say the workout's a waste of time, but I would certainly say it's certainly not worth my time. In which case I'll be like, all right, I'll get some good night's sleep tonight and I'll try again tomorrow. And almost inevitably it's always, well, yeah, that was way better than what it would have been yesterday. In which case it's a much better workout. So pain is Mother Nature's way of telling us we're screwing something up. Full stop. We need to look at what we're doing. And when we are using our workouts based on a certain amount of work, you're already behind the 8 ball. You're already 2 strikes behind when you come to the plate because you're basing your workouts on how much work you do. That's a terrible thing to base your workouts off of because I don't know how much work you're going to need to do to accomplish your objectives. You could work out for several hours. You could work out in 5 minutes. You could do 2 sets. You could do 5. I don't know what amount of work you need to do. Nobody does because your circumstances are always changing. So go based on your objectives rather than how much work you do. And you're going to have a much greater chance of A, having that objective met so your workout's actually effective, and B, stopping once you've met your objectives so you're not continuously driving yourself into the ground. Let's see what else we can do. Jerky Worky. Yo, Matt, currently at quite a stressful point in my academic life for at least the next week. What's your top advice other than just do something when life gets rough? By the way, great today. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So for one thing, you're looking at a tough week coming up. So when there's going to be these little disruptions in your life, and it's going to be like a week, like a lot of times this is a vacation for people. They're like, I'm going on a vacation. I'm going to be without a gym for a week. What do I do? Usually I just tell people, don't worry about it. You know, I would even say, don't even do something or whatever. Like if you want to take the week off, take the week off. It's a week. It's going to do nothing. It's fine. It's not really going to hurt you. And plus, it sounds like you probably have bigger fish to fry in your life at this point with academic projects and things coming up. You may be better off just doing some sort of activity to blow off stress, like go for a good walk or do a set of push-ups when the mood strikes you. But I'm willing to bet you may have more important things going on right now. So when it's just a week, I wouldn't worry about it. But if it turns into something a lot longer, then yeah, definitely make adjustments. Decreasing the amount of work in your workouts you're doing is something that you can pay attention to. You know, look at my micro workouts playlist. Get a couple of micro workouts in. 3-minute tests are a great one. Okay, 3 minutes, push-ups, go. How many push-ups can you get in 3 minutes? Or, you know, pull-ups or rows or whatever exercise of your choice. After 3 minutes, you're done. It's that quick. Usually those are easier to fit into a schedule. And I'm a big fan of still, like I said, doing something just for the sake of stress management. When I was studying in college, I mean, I was never a very, very gifted student. I usually had to do twice the work as far as studying goes for half the grades of all of my peers. You know, I would start studying for an exam and it'd be like, the exam's in 3 weeks. I'm like, yeah, I've got to start studying. I need to study for 3 weeks for an exam continuously because that's the student I was. I was very poor at that whole rote learning kind of thing. But I would still go out for a bike ride, even if it was just around campus a couple of times. Something. Was it much? No, but it definitely kept my head on straight and prevented me from going crazy. So get some movement in for that sake, but otherwise don't worry about it. It's a week. It's not really going to do much for you one way or the other. San Diego CA asking, hey Matt, if I have pain in my lower back, can I still do things like dips, push-ups, etc.? Okay, so this is going into my next point perfectly. Thank you very much, Santiago. So pain is something that when we have it, though, because we will have it, we want to still do something, because if you're like letting a sore ankle stop you, then you're basically sacrificing your ability to train all of your body for one little area. So definitely, yes, do anything you can, but as they say, let pain be your guide. If it hurts, don't do it. But if you can do something like I've got pain in my lower back, but I can do pull-ups just fine, well, then do pull-ups. Absolutely. Definitely keep things going. It's kind of almost a pet peeve of mine when people will tell me, it's like, oh, I can't work out. Oh, woe is me because I've got this bad ankle or my wrist hurts or something. And I always think of this one guy named Scott who used to work out at one of the first gyms I worked at. Scott was very severely handicapped. The only parts of his body he had control over were his head and his right arm. That's it. That's all he had. He couldn't control his legs, his torso for the most part. One of his arms was permanently like kind of tucked like this. He could kind of move it around a little bit. He could control his motorized chair, but he had one arm he could work. That was it. And he was in that gym getting it done on a regular basis. He had to modify a few things, of course. Someone had to kind of hoist him up into position for some of the machines, but he made it work. So always do what you can with what you've got, but don't do things that hurt. Don't be one of those guys like me back in the day. It's like, okay, so my knees are shot to hell and they always hurt and they really feel bad. But, if I sit on the bike for 20 minutes and I down a bottle of Advil and I'm in the sauna and I start off nice and easy, and if the planets and the stars align just right, now I can do my barbell back squats. For that sake, I'd be like, Matt, stop doing the barbell back squats. Find something you can do right off the bat to work your legs that's not going to require an hour of preparatory work kind of thing. So use whatever you can is definitely the way to look at that. Mariano, good to see you. Good afternoon. Greetings to the whole community. Argentina, hiya. Let's see what else I can address right here. But yeah, we want to make sure that that pain is being addressed, not ignored, my friends. Thenesis G, been getting lower back pain from dumbbell rows. Have you had this? Absolutely. So one of the most important things that I ever learned about pain is that, as I was saying before, the body can handle an unbelievable amount of force and stress. As long as the force and stress is going through the body, not into it. So again, in the mountain biking world or the skiing world, we know that if we crash, it's much more in our interest if we can roll out of it, because the energy is going through the body and dissipating. We're going and managing the amount of energy going through the body. I've seen people have horrific bike crashes and they just pop up and they've got a couple of cuts and bruises and they're like, haha, I'm fine. And it's like, good Lord, how are you still conscious after that? And I've seen also people have these bike crashes where it didn't look like anything. Like it was, just a little trip and fall, and they've got to go to the hospital afterwards. Why? Because they stop. All that energy goes directly into their body. So in practical terms, from exercise, what's going on with your lower back there is when we're doing exercises, we want to make sure that force is transferring, through the entire body, from nose to toes, tips to toes, as it were. And with the dumbbell rows, I'm assuming you're doing a bent over row, but this could also be applied to, single arm lat rows like on a bench or something. What's going on is something on your backside is not engaging well enough. It's usually glutes, usually hamstrings. You may not be packing your shoulders back enough. Your lats are not stabilizing enough, something along those lines, but something's giving way. And when that happens, instead of the force going through your entire body, from your hands holding the dumbbells into your feet on the floor, some muscles not engaging well enough. And so that force is going through your body and it's stopping into your lower back. The lower back can handle an unbelievable amount of force and stress. I mean, look at even moderate power lifters. There's a lot of force going through that back, but it's going through it, not into it. So in your case, I would warm up with maybe some RDLs, maybe some hip extensions, some table bridges, something that gets the glutes and hamstrings really fired up. And make sure you're packing those shoulders down away from your ears as much as possible. And that may do the trick for you, because force, the lower back is very much like the joints. Whenever there's stress in a joint, it means a muscle somewhere isn't doing its job, because the muscles handle force very well. Joints, not so much. All right, let's see what else we can address here. Oscar asking here, hey Matt, what's the difference between doing a pull-up workout with a thicker pull-up bar and a thinner pull-up bar? Not a whole heck of a lot, to be honest with you. Thicker bars generally are harder on the grip. So you're typically talking about more, work in your forearms and stuff. A lot of it's also just personal preference too, because I've always liked a thicker bar. My hands have always been kind of a bit on the bigger side. So I've always much preferred a bigger, thicker bar. But some people like a thinner bar because they find it's a little easier to grip and grab onto. It's largely personal preference. Like I said, you want to find something that feels comfortable, something that works very well with your hands. And you may find that some pull-up variations are better with some bars than for others. But for my money, I usually prefer a thicker bar, just for the sake of comfort. Let's see. What else can we address here? Shinobu. All right. I wish they made those pull-up stations a bit taller. I'm 5'10", would like to use one without bending my legs. That's always a big thing to address. I always tell folks, whenever you're installing a pull-up bar, if you have the ability to install it at various heights, install it to the height where you can grab onto it when standing on your toes, on the balls of your feet. So you've got to stand up like you're doing a calf raise in order to grab the bar. That way, you have the ability to have a full hang just by picking up your toes off the floor, but you're also not so far off the ground that if you're doing something like weighted pull-ups or leg raises and you slip or you just kind of let go, that you're not going to have 1.5 feet that you're falling, and then your angle might be a little off and things might be a little bit funky. So you want to make sure that you're setting the bar up to a good height like that. The other thing to consider is when you're doing pull-ups, like that pull-up bar over there has an adjustable height to it, but I usually keep it low enough so that I'm standing on it, staying fairly flat-footed when I grab onto the bar, because when I do pull-ups, then I'm hinging at my hips, my feet slightly kick out in front of me, and that way I can get a pretty good full hang without needing to bend my knees as well. But I like bending my knees. I like doing the knees behind me just a little bit. Doorway pull-up bars and stuff like that are good for that. So anyway, getting back to pain, we want force to transfer through the body. And always be aware, this goes along with what I was talking about earlier, about some exercises are going to be more of a liability under fatigue. So barbell or dumbbell bent over rows are going to be such a case where chances are very good your ability to manage the force going through the body is going to fatigue faster than your actual rowing exercise that you're doing. And that's usually why I don't give that exercise to a whole lot of folks. I'd much rather just lean back on some gymnastics rings and do rows that way, because it's a lot easier to hold that position, and the muscles that are going to be more challenged and potentially burn out faster are the actual pull chain, which is what we're after. So we always want to be aware of these exercises where when fatigue starts to mount, what's most likely to be giving way? What's most likely to be compromised? And we want it to be in alignment with what we're trying to achieve as far as our objective goes. If you're doing kettlebell swings for cardio, for example, and your proficiency of using your extension chain, your glutes and your hamstrings and keeping your shoulders packed, it's not that good in endurance. Well, yeah, people are like, well, my lower back starts bothering me a lot more when I do a lot of kettlebell swings. Okay, then that's probably not a good cardio option for you. Maybe jump on the rowing machine, jump on the attack bike, hill sprints, things like that. When you find some exercises are just causing this constant creation of discomfort and pain, that's probably not a very good exercise for you to be doing for that objective. There are some exercises that are better for some objectives than for others. I'm going to be making a video on this later this week on what are the best exercises to push your body into a high state of muscular fatigue or failure. Because yeah, you could do it potentially with a lot of different exercises, but some are better than others. And a big reason for that is because some exercises, when your fatigue builds up, form starts to break down, it becomes a safety issue. Because there are some exercises where form starts to break down and you're still perfectly fine and safe, keep going. In other exercises, form breaks down and suddenly you're getting stress in the joints, you're getting a bit more of a bit of the compromise in your stability and your ability to manage that force going through your body. And that's where a lot of the injuries come about. Good question here. This has been a long time since I've done that. Matt, would you post more workout videos with commentaries? Loved your playground videos. Holy smokes, those are old, my friend. Actually, what I'm doing now is looking into making follow-along videos where I would do a workout and you can follow along. I'm going to have like a timer on the screen and it's going to tell you when to start and stop. I'm going to start this with some of the overcoming isometrics and the micro workouts videos. So keep an eye on the RDP YouTube channel and make sure you're subscribed. So that way you can be notified when they are coming up. But that's a new thing I'm starting to work on. I'm still working on the technology for the timer, but it's going to be a new thing that's going to come about. And then I can give you commentaries as we're working out together. Very good. All right. All right. So more with pain. So let's say you have pain in your shoulder, in your lower back, in your ankles and stuff. What can we do about it? Because we certainly don't want to be like the foolish fool that I was, where it's like, oh, I'm sure I can just deal with it. You know, I get a bottle of Advil, and if I can just get enough of a warm up and everything, I don't have it. But the fact of the matter is that chronic pain is something that's always going to hold you back. I don't care how many times you roll out your IT bands. If your IT bands are constantly tight and they're constantly sore, you're not actually fixing the problem. Nobody has tight IT bands from a lack of foam rolling. It's because you're not addressing the real issue at hand. Now, of course, this is where a lot of people go on the internet and they're like, okay, I've got this sore shoulder, I've got tight IT bands, what do I do with it? But as useful as the internet can sometimes be, it's actually really bad for diagnosing and understanding pain. When people ask me, like, I've got the shoulder pain, what do I do? It's like, dude, your guess is as good as mine. Because it's not something that's very easy to diagnose on the internet. I mean, hell, half the time you're like, this is what my symptoms are. What's wrong with me? It's like anything from a twisted ankle to terminal cancer is what Google's going to spit back at you. So it's really hard to diagnose what the heck is going on. And that's why whenever someone's got an injury or an issue or something, I tell them the same thing. Find a professional and get in-person guidance and assessment. Because yeah, sure, apps are great, workout programs are great, the internet is great, but the gold standard for figuring out what the heck is actually going on and how to address it is always in-person assessment. And I know that's not the easiest thing out there because it's expensive to see professionals, especially if we don't have any sort of insurance. You got to make an appointment, you got to see them in person and stuff. But it is absolutely the best way to go by far. Now, of course, you can try things on your own where it's like, okay, I've got this sore lower back when I'm doing bent over rows. And you may find some videos, try this, try that, keep your glutes engaged, use some hip extension exercises beforehand as warm up, all good stuff. Give it a shot. Maybe it can work a little bit, but don't keep beating your head against the wall going like, man, I've dealt with this thing for 6 months now. I've tried all these different things that I found. You've got to really see someone in person if possible, because a lot of times the professionals who have dealt with these sorts of things will tell you what to do. And it's probably nothing to do with what you really think it is. Again, I've got the back issues that I've dealt with for years, shoulder issues I've dealt with for years. I'm like, okay, I've got to stabilize my back and I've got to strengthen my back and I've got to stretch my back and everything. Finally, I saw a chiropractor, a friend of mine, addressed, and he took x-rays so he could actually see where my bones were in alignment and stuff. And he's like, yep. All right, we're going to fix this. I'm like, so what do I do for my back? He's like, nothing for your back. Your back's fine. It's all in your neck. I'm like, my neck? And he's like, yep, look at here. It pops up the x-ray. I've got it on my Instagram channel. He's like, yep, see this where your neck is, where you're holding your head. And it's just creating this chain reaction all the way down your spine. And that's what's causing the problems. I would have never figured that out on my own. Never. And that's one of the reasons why I tell people go see professional advice, because you could literally spend years trying to deal and fix an issue on your own. and you could potentially get it dealt with and fixed in a week by seeing someone. So all those years that I spent trying to haggle with it, trying to figure it out on my own, all those years of compromised workouts, compromised bike rides, compromised martial arts training, all that stuff, completely unnecessary if I just went and saw someone to begin with. And so that's why you want to see someone in person if possible, because they can get a hell of a lot better diagnosis and assessment of what you can do to deal with that pain right from the get-go. There is just no replacing in-person abilities to manage things. Max Malcolm's asking, for daily push-pull squat workouts, what's the minimum amount of time you recommend putting into a workout each day? Again, I don't think it matters. How much work should you do? Again, this is a how much work should I do kind of activity or question. Don't base things on how much work you need to do. Always remember, though, that there is no minimum. There's no such thing as a certain amount of work you have to do in order for the workout to be effective. Because it's not like if you do something with your body, your cells are kind of going, okay, nothing's happening. He's still doing reps, nothing's happening. And then you cross a threshold and now you're creating a stimulus. That's not how it works. Literally, take your hand, do this, and clench your fist. You just created a stimulus to clench your fist, to have some degree of tension in your forearms to be able to do that action. There's no such thing as an ineffective rep. There's no such thing as an ineffective workout. What's the minimum? 1 push-up, 1 row, and 1 squat. That's the minimum, or half a squat. You could really dice it down. Hell, stand still and just tense up your legs. That's even more minimum. You can always do less, and it's always going to do something. So whenever you're looking at your ability to do something on a daily basis, you always want to keep in mind, what's your time? Obviously, you don't work out for an hour if you've only got a 15-minute lunch break. What's your energy level? So if you're saying to yourself, I really want to do something today, but I'm not feeling it. Okay, then don't do a lot. Sometimes I'll jump on that pull-up bar back there and get a set of pull-ups and be like, yeah, okay, I guess this isn't my day. All right, I'm done. I'm not going to force myself to do more work if I don't have the energy. I'm not going to force square pegs into round holes. If I don't have much energy, I don't do a whole lot. It's that simple. But on those days where I do feel gangbuster and awesome and wonderful, yeah, I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to limit myself. Again, it's all about achieving those objectives that I talked about earlier. I never base my workouts on how much work it takes. I do however much work it is necessary to achieve the objective. And that way I ensure I'm never underdoing it and I'm never overdoing it. I'm always right on the money. Let's see, any questions I'm missing here? I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Again, folks, leave a hey Matt in the question section and comment section, so that way I know I'm getting things taken care of. But as I was talking about pain earlier, we want to make sure also that sometimes we have a pain that we have to be mindful of. We can't fix all pain all the time. I've got an issue on my right foot from an injury when I was 15. And because of that, I can't bend my big toe on my right foot back very far. So I have to be very careful about when I'm hitting my foot against a heavy bag. Or if I'm doing a handstand, I don't come down on my right foot because that jams the toe on my right foot because I can't bend the toe back very much. So yeah, sometimes there are circumstances where you're not going to be able to completely eliminate, where you're not going to be able to fully address it. And that's perfectly okay. So do work around those things. Do whatever you need to in order to manage those things. But at the same time, don't have the mindset or the limitations that it can sometimes impose. Don't be like, oh, I've got this one issue, then therefore I can't do anything about it. I had this one gal that I'm training who had some severe knee problems from a surgery. She had a skiing accident. She couldn't kneel down on the floor. Like sit down on the floor with your hips on your heels. She couldn't do that. And so it would have been very easy for her, I'm sure, to say, well, my legs are shot to hell. I can't run. I can't do squats. I can't do lunges. I can't do anything. No, but she came to me saying, I can't do very much, but I want to do whatever I can. And over months of training, we were able to chip away at what her legs could do. And she's doing squats, she's doing lunges, she's kneeling down on the ground and even leaning back to stretch out her quads. She's doing all these things she thought she couldn't do. Is it as good as it would have been if she didn't have the injury? No, but it's more than she thought. So it still goes along the attitude of get what you can out of these sorts of things. Jen Zem saying, hey, Matt, spending years trying to fix things for oneself is right. Knowing when to get pro help is key to actual permanent fixes, or if too far gone, help to get around whatever damage. Yeah, because that's a good point there, Jen Zem, where if you have this issue, it's like, yeah, there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to do a full squat. Like I had one gentleman who had a hip injury, and he's like, yeah, I just cannot get my hip up. There's a physical limitation in the structure of my bone that doesn't allow my hip to flex any more than it was something like 50 degrees or something. You know, like, okay, not a problem. We'll find ways to still productively work your legs with that limitation. Would it have been better if he could have gotten full range of motion as hip? Absolutely. However, we still were able to use equipment and training techniques in modified ways, so that way he could still maintain and build strength in his legs and up his tennis game. It wasn't a case of, well, there's nothing I can do about it. And again, because I was a trainer, I knew lots of different ways of doing that. He came to me figuring there was no way he could make his legs stronger, but we were able to make it happen because I've got the tools. So when we seek professional advice, usually they also not only can diagnose and assess what's going on a hell of a lot better than we can, but they also have tools and techniques that can really help. Again, when I went to my chiropractor with my neck issue, he's like, this is what you need to do. And he gave me a special type of a pad that I put under my neck, and I lean back and it realigns my neck. I never would have found that thing. Even if I knew what the problem was with my neck, even if I knew what the issues were, I never would have figured out how to do that type of exercise on my own. And even if I did figure it out on my own, it probably would have been months of research. Instead, he's like, here, put this under your neck. Okay, great. And it was that quick, simple, and easy. Take shortcuts, my friends. Find professionals who can help you faster than you can help yourself. So when we're dealing with pain, we also don't want to mask it too much. It's always tempting to mask these sorts of things. Like, oh, I've got the Bengay and the Tiger Balm on the muscles, and I'm rolling out my IT bands and all these sorts of things. And yeah, that could be good for temporary relief, but we want to find the cause. We want to address what's causing it in the first place. As I said earlier, nobody has tight IT bands because of a lack of foam rolling. And if you're dealing with a chronic issue, you can have momentary relief through ointments, pills, or even a simple warm-up or something, but we want it gone permanently, never coming back again, not something you have to deal with. We shouldn't have to deal with pain. We should just eliminate the damn thing if possible. And if it's not possible, then find ways to minimize it so much that we don't really need to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. Because, like I said, everything is going to be inhibited by pain. Pain is going to always hold you back. If you're trying to lose weight, it's going to destroy your energy level. It's going to inhibit your ability to be active and burn calories. And you're probably going to have a bit more of posture issues from it. You're going to have compensation issues from it. A lot of my physical therapy friends that I grew up with were always telling me, they're like, we don't heal people. We heal people from getting healed from the injury. So if you had a bad ankle and you were walking with a limp, that's going to create all sorts of compensatory movement patterns, and your hips are slightly out of alignment, and your hamstring on that side might get a little bit weaker because of how you're walking and stuff. So then you go to the physical therapist, and they're like, okay, because you healed this injury and you had this limp or you were on crutches and all these other sort of things, now we've got to get you back up to speed to heal from the healing process. And that's oftentimes what ends up happening when we have pain, is we mistakenly think when the pain is gone, we're good, we're done. But those little imbalances that came from the healing process can persist for years. And then they lead to other issues and problems that can come about. And then you got a whole nother thing to deal with. And one of the last things I wanted to mention too is the fact that when we have an injury, and we heal the injury to a certain degree, and we're like, oh, I don't feel pain anymore, you're not all the way healed just yet. Because remember, we feel pain at a certain threshold of damage. But there is a degree of damage before that threshold that occurs before we really feel much of anything. So even if you get to the point where you're no longer feeling pain, that doesn't mean the damage is fully healed. So that's why you'll often hear like athletic coaches and stuff say, okay, I know your hamstrings aren't bothering you anymore. I know your knees aren't bothering you anymore, but don't go back to your normal workouts just yet. Still kind of take it easy because you want to make sure that you're letting things fully heal, which is going to happen shortly after you have the loss sensation of pain and your body's no longer telling you that something is entirely wrong. So the little things to know about pain. It's one of the aspects of fitness that is a little not sexy to deal with. That's why we've only got like 22 people or so coming on the channel today. I know it's not the sexiest thing, but the fact of the matter is those who understand and deal with pain the best are the ones who are going to succeed. Because a lot of times in life, and especially in fitness, the thing that separates the winners from the losers are those who are in pain and those who are not in pain. As a friend of mine once who used to deal with a lot of professional athletes used to tell me, it's like, you know what? Yeah, there's genetics involved. There's, some degree of luck of just getting a lucky break for a tryout for a team. It's like, but Matt, at the end of the day, the people who just make the pros and the people who win the games are the ones who just don't get hurt. The ones who just are resilient, that they can do 1,000 practice pitches and not have a busted shoulder, or the ones who can play in a full game and be recovered after 2 days rather than 2 weeks. It's just a lot of times the ones who can recover faster and the ones who don't have as much pain, they're the ones who win because they just simply outlast everybody else. They're the ones who endure better than everybody else. And in especially the long-term goals of losing weight, building muscle, and trying to get all the benefits that we want from our health and fitness, a lot of it just comes down to don't beat your body up. Don't do excessive amounts of work. Don't seek stress. Don't seek pain. Don't seek the hard ways to go. Have an objective-based approach to your fitness and training. Be clear on what you're trying to accomplish in your workouts and know how much work you need to do to accomplish that. Because otherwise, you're very much at the risk of either underdoing it or overdoing it. Getting that nail to hit right on the head is very difficult. Hard to shoot a basket with a basketball when you're blindfolded. But when you can see clearly what your target is, you stand a much greater chance of actually getting what you want out of it. And not only do you stand a greater chance of getting those results, but you stand a much greater chance of not getting hurt in the process. And there's a lot to be said for that. This past week, I've had a couple of issues with my body. I had a strained gracilis muscle in my hip, and I went to Taekwondo anyway on Thursday night. And man, I just couldn't do anything right. I felt like the entire class was a struggle. Even standing on one leg was very, very difficult. And I'm not entirely sure it was worth it to go to that class. I probably would have been better off not going. But, it is what it is. But it's another example of the fact that pain is just going to hold you back. It's just going to be detrimental. It's that simple. So do what you can to get forced to go through your body, have a holistic approach to your training and get your entire body engaged so that your stress is going through your entire body. If you do have pain, certainly work around it, keep doing what you can, and get it diagnosed and deal with it so that you can fix it as quickly as possible. And chronic pain, if it is going to be a reality, as inevitably, I guess it will be for all of us at some point or another, try to manage it as best you can, work around it, and see what you can do to keep it at bay as much as possible. And yeah, sometimes that may mean some more serious things. I had a client I trained years ago who had some real serious wrist issues. And I was asking him about it. And he's like, yeah, apparently I've got this, blocked nerve or something. I need surgery for it. And I was like, well, if you have the ability to get that surgery, get the surgery, because it's only going to be holding you back. It's going to be uncomfortable for a while and you've got recovery and everything like that. But damn it, you got to just fix these things, because there's no way that your body is going to be able to do what you want it to do if you have any level of this chronic pain going on. So it's just a perspective, but it's a very important perspective in how we address pain, because it's never going to be your friend. It's never going to make you stronger and tougher. You don't get stronger by enduring pain. You get stronger by overcoming pain and getting rid of it. And that's why I now ride a mountain bike with gloves, because I am a better mountain biker wearing gloves, rather than saying, I'm tough, I can deal with this pain, I can blisters on my hand. Yeah, that's fine, I can handle it. It's like, yeah, you can deal with it, but instead of dealing with it, you should just not have it in the first place. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Again, check out the latest RDP quick reads over on the ability to have more powerful information coming from the Red Delta Project and Amazon, I almost said YouTube channel, Amazon account, and more are coming as well. But thanks, everybody, for coming on, and I'll talk to you next time. Till then, be fit and live free.